Oh god, look at this house.
Looks like a Hell Let Loose server right here. Wait, what?
Come on in, flush the toilet.
Perfect time for a loose grenade.
Alright, I'm getting the vehicles back over here.
Oh, here we go.
Friendlies in there.
Oh, look, come on.
Straight south. Yeah, let's move.
Look at this charge across the blade.
Hey folks, Dave here, and we are back in ARMA, of all things, with an early preview of the groundwork that is going to be used to build ARMA 4. For those not familiar, ARMA is one of the largest names in the tactical simulator FPS genre. With roots going back to the original Operation Flashpoint, ARMA has always been one of the largest scale tactical FPS games out there, with both infantry, armored, wheeled, and aircraft combat all combined into massive hundreds of square kilometer maps. But one thing that's always kind of held the series down is the rough edges. The ARMA series has always been infinitely moddable. Everything from custom weapons to custom voice acting to very easy to create custom missions in ARMA 3, but the game was always run rather poorly overall, especially once you start adding mods on top, and it's not very accessible for new players. Here in ARMA Reforger, developer Bohemia Interactive is seeking to change all of that. To be clear, this is not ARMA 4, but it includes many of the features that are going to be key components of ARMA 4, and it's a way for the community to get involved early and help to build out the engine and the feature set that is going to make up ARMA 4. And let me tell you guys, the improvements here in ARMA Reforger are actually extremely impressive, especially if you spent, like me, a couple thousand hours in the previous ARMA games and dealt with the wonkiness to get to the good parts of the gameplay. There truly is some revolutionary stuff here in the newest version of the engine, along with a completely new suite of dev tools accessible for everyone to try out. This really is the future of milsim gaming. One of the largest titles is back. But does ARMA Reforger have enough content here in early access to justify its rather steep $30 price tag? I'm not convinced, but I think you guys will be very interested to see some of these improvements in action and how it's all coming together, even if you decide against paying that $30 entry price, which, by the way, does not go towards your purchase of ARMA 4 down the road. This is its own standalone game here in ARMA Reforger, with about a year of promised updates and content, leading to a full 1.0 release out of early access. Most surprising to me, though, is the game is, of course, already out. I'm playing it right here myself in this video. It launched on May 17th as they announced it, both on Steam Early Access as well as on Xbox Game Preview, which is their version of Early Access there as well. When Bohemia says that they want this game to be a test bed for what ARMA 4 is going to be, they mean it. And that appears to include a console release complete with cross-platform mod support. So, it's an exciting time to be an ARMA fan, a fan of military shooters in general, or just a console player who never got to play ARMA at all in the past. Good things are already here, and even better things appear to be just down the road. First though, let's look at what's changed here in ARMA Reforger compared to the last full title in this series, ARMA 3. One of the first things that veteran players are going to notice as they're playing the multiplayer here on live servers with other players running some scenarios against AI is that your frame rate stays almost entirely consistent. ARMA 3 was infinitely moddable, but so was your frame rate. The more things you crammed into the game and the more things you crammed into your custom missions and scenarios, the more your frame rate tanked. There's a limited slice of content here in Reforger, but there appears to be no real limit to what you can place as you're running a mission. And I've seen battles with hundreds of AI, at least what appears to be hundreds of AI fighting 32 players at a time, and the game is still running at 60 plus FPS. Consistent higher frame rates is enough to get excited for ARMA 4 for anybody who's played the previous games before. Another big bullet point feature for veteran players is built-in realistic radios. One of the most popular mod sets for previous ARMA games were radios that acted as realistic radios. They would actually interact with the environment, and smaller radios with small antennas would break up and get crackly as terrain features like hills and mountains and forests would get in the way. Realistic working radios are not only super immersive, allowing real-world effects to influence your communication in-game instead of everyone just sitting together in a TeamSpeak or Discord server, but for larger missions and larger tactical milsim groups, radios are actually an important part of maintaining communications, just like in real military operations.
Be advised, we have contacts coming up the trail. That's friendlies. Oh.
In Reforger, just like previous popular ARMA radio mods, you can pick different size radios for different broadcast distances. You can run different channels for different teams and squads. There's a command radio, and there's also just talking locally around you to have basic conversations without taking up the radio channels. The radio systems in ARMA Reforger are already working incredibly well and are incredibly immersive. I played for hours on a rather organized milsim server, and setting up your radio, joining your group's radio channel, communicating with your teammates, and even people not on your team, it's just really intuitive once you get it set up. You hit G, you pick your radio channel, or you hit escape, go to the player list, join your particular team or squad, and it can auto set your radio channel for you to match theirs. Those radio mods were already one of the most glitchy and demanding mods that people added to previous games, so having it built into ARMA Reforger and of course ARMA 4 in the future is a big deal for, I think, everybody from large to small groups. That's super exciting and it's working super well. One of my biggest surprises jumping into Reforger for the first time were the vehicles really don't feel like ARMA vehicles in, I guess, the best possible way that I could describe it. Previous games had vehicles that mostly felt almost bolted to the terrain, but here they have shocks and physics, and you can actually drive Jeeps over the beach here. I was having a bunch of fun doing this back and forth with some pretty convincing physics, and it may not look perfect as you're watching the video footage here, but again, as a veteran ARMA player, I can't even begin to describe how much better it feels to drive these vehicles. They're set up quite simply here in Reforger, where you just hold F while looking at the ignition to start the engine, and all this shifting is done for you on the manual transmission, but I would not be surprised to see that we could tweak the difficulty of those controls for different difficulty levels for different missions, where if you wanted more in-depth required controls for shifting gears, kind of like how DayZ does it, that will most likely be an option in the future as well. For now though, it's intuitive and works really well. Also notice here on your HUD, the obnoxious scroll to select things menu is completely gone. The HUD is now contextual. If you are in a vehicle and you want to get out, look at the door and press F and your guy reaches out, opens the door, and climbs out. This is also similar to how DayZ works for vehicles, but it's just a lot smoother here in ARMA Reforger. Other controls have also been simplified and refined. You can just use your mouse wheel to control your run speed, just like Escape from Tarkov does. Your inventory is just a tab press away, and you can drag things around basically as you want to, although right-clicking to move things out of boxes was a little wonky to get used to, and right now containers like ammo boxes will have their inventory shuffle a bit as people take things in and out of them, which is really obnoxious if you're trying to grab a magazine and somebody just grabbed something 1 millisecond earlier and all of the tiles shift just slightly. but I'm sure that's the kind of thing that's going to get patched out. For now, the inventory is nothing special, but it does work well and definitely requires less scrolling and button presses than previous games did. Despite some consistent issues with connecting to certain game types and certain servers, once I got into servers here in just the early access version of Reforger, the in-game performance server-wise was quite good. I didn't see a ton of banding on fellow players, and I'm not sure what their pings might have been anyway. It could have just been some high ping players, but even as the game masters were creating scenarios and spawning enemies and working on the mission as we were actually playing it, server performance seemed to keep up quite nicely. Longtime ARMA players will also barely recognize the player controller, as you can now vault fences with relative smoothness. You can jump down from ledges onto other rooftops and actually feel like you are connecting with the rooftop with realistic physics. In the intro to the game, there's an obstacle course that showcases a lot of the new physical interaction that your player character has with the environment. You can tell the devs are really proud of their work here, as they should be. It's a massive improvement over all of the previous games, and even a nice leap past what DayZ has done. There are some things missing, like the more detailed stances, but hopefully those things will get added later on. Ballistics and weapons handling is really enjoyable, which is one of the highlights of the entire franchise. I'm glad that that has stuck around. It really feels just like it does in Arma 3. Guns feel great, distant shots feel super satisfying when you land them, although there is still the issue of enemy players with armor don't quite have the flinch effects down yet, so it can be odd to shoot an AI player who has armor and they don't really seem to react a whole lot. That could also be a slight performance issue on the server side here in early access. It's just one of those things that I hope that gets tweaked. But also AI performance here in this current version seemed to be hit or miss, no pun intended. Sometimes the AI was quite reactive, taking cover, putting down suppressive fire, flanking, and performing pretty well. Other times they would be taking direct fire, sometimes right to their armor, and just, like I said, would have almost no reaction whatsoever. None of those issues were a huge detriment to the games that I played. I just hope that it continues to get tweaked and improved as the game continues along its development as we head towards Arma 4. Veteran players might also find themselves quite surprised by how streamlined the medical system is. Right now there's just basic bandages which you can apply when you're wounded. You just put them in your hand and hold R to heal. I didn't see any medic classes at all, and the medical system seems either very bare bones or just placeholder almost, and I hope that gets some additional depth. We saw things like the ACE mod that added some much more in-depth options for the medical systems in the ARMA games, and seeing the devs have taken so much influence from the radio mods that were popular in previous ARMA games, I hope they do some deeper medical systems in ARMA Reforger and ARMA 4 as well, even if those deeper medical systems are optional based on game difficulty settings. If you're doing a casual mission with friends, for example, like a attack the fort mission, it might be super fun to have just basic bandage healing in and respawn set to your squad leader, but more serious and larger tactical milsim groups might want a more in-depth medical system in place. In fact, I'm almost positive that they will, so I hope we'll see it. Finally, let's talk about the mod tools and then the visuals. Let's talk about the visuals first, because I know you guys have been watching the footage here. The game does look very good. It doesn't look like a next-gen game, but a lot of the up-close visuals, like the Humvees and your firearms and your uniforms, are just benefiting from some all-new assets. There's a lot less reused content from previous games here in Reforger than ARMA 3 and even 2 had from previous games. I know that even ARMA 3 had some assets that were still hanging around all the way back from Operation Flashpoint. And while you're still going to see some familiar buildings and stone walls and fences, they've all been given a nice new coat of paint in this case. There's some actual destruction for some fences, like the cement fence with the stacked blocks. Those can be destroyed. The wire fences can be run down with a Humvee, and the debris actually has some physics going on. There's just enough visual and physics fidelity upgrades to really make this feel like a generational leap. And when you add in the fact that we have overall very smooth graphical performance, that's really impressive. Despite performance issues in previous games, one of the biggest strengths of Real Virtuality, the previous engine, in my opinion, were the vistas and how the terrain system works. Bohemia's environment artists have always been able to paint some very realistic terrain by using real terrain height maps and just loading up these terrains with full-on forests. Just the amount of tree assets that make up a forest in previous games is still impressive in my opinion. And when you sit on a mountainside and look across those older games, the forests still look pretty good. I'm glad that we've kept the scale here, even with the slight visual improvements here in ARMA Reforger. Forest and vistas and mountains still look very, very realistic, but with a number of visual improvements at distance as well. There's just less pop-in and visual flickering at distance on top of those improved close-range graphics. During our play sessions, we also noticed that the forest actually maintained some of their darkness at distance, which is one of the limitations of this engine previously. At distance, things like trees and forest would have no real shadows underneath them, so you could very easily see enemies just running through a non-shadowed forest as they're heading out into the open to fight you. Now the forest actually maintains some kind of darkness, perhaps a shading effect, if you will, at distance, which really helps improve the visual quality, but also the tactical advantage of staying in a tree line in PvP, which is really cool to see. There have been a couple of visual upgrades that actually do feel almost next-gen, one of which is fully detailed interiors. For a game that has still absolutely massive maps spanning what will probably be hundreds of square kilometers, to have fully detailed multi-story buildings, entire towns of them that you can fight out of, that is just kind of wild to me. In the mission creator, you can zoom from the clouds all the way down to someone's sofa in their house. That's just kind of wild. If you are a modder or a developer, or you just want to crack the hood of this engine and see how it works, the new mod tools are looking really, really good. I'm talking some next-gen looking tools that are right up there, in my opinion, with how Unreal does things for their world designer and their flow graphs for designing new AI systems. I've only spent just an hour or two with the tools, and there's a lot of documentation to go through, but they look really, really good. And that's really what ARMA Reforger is all about. There isn't a ton of gameplay content, but there's a ton of new systems to toy around with, to practice with, and for modders, this is their chance to get their hands on the new systems and the new engine early and start creating new content for all of us to enjoy. All that being said though, if you are not a modder or dev and you don't want to make your own content, is there enough content here to play to justify the $30 price tag? For me personally, I consider this a donation to all of the hours that I put into ARMA 3, thousands upon thousands of hours. The improvements here really are impressive. And although there isn't enough content here, I think, especially on this early access release to justify the price tag, hopefully by the time that we hit a 1.0 release for ARMA Reforger, there will be actually enough content to justify that price tag. In the meantime though guys, this is an impressive amount of improvements. You can really see the years upon years of work that has been done by the DayZ and other Bohemia teams on this engine, the new tools, the new systems, the new HUD, the console release with cross-platform modding. There's a lot of impressive stuff going on here, and you guys better believe I'm going to be keeping a close eye on how Reforger develops, and I will absolutely be watching for any hint of news for ARMA 4 and what might be to come in the full release of that game. Here's hoping we also maintain the Cold War setting for that. That would be awesome. For now, I hope you guys have enjoyed this early look at ARMA Reforger and the future of ARMA milsim. Thanks for watching, and I'll leave you with a couple of extra gameplay clips.
Okay, let's move.
He's just watching. He turned around.
Charge! Let's fucking go. Look at this charge across the plains. I'd love to see it.
Alright, I'm taking this guy out.
Get him. Should be fine.
Yeah, he's down. They were in armor for sure. He took some hits.
Holy crap.
I've lost you guys in the trees.
Butchered somebody.
Who's your squad leader here? Get this shit together. He else is the squad leader, boys.
push, push.
Look up today!
Look at the tent, friendly in the tent, just blazing away.
CEO up there killing more than you guys.
Holy, push through.
Arguing about command structure during the advance.
Honestly.
Ooh, shots incoming.
Behind us. We took him out.
Okay. Clear him with my pistol. It's wild to me that the frame rate's held steady through all that.
Yeah.
I'm back,
that was
boys.
incredible. It stayed at 60 while I was hip firing with like 15 other guys behind me shooting.
Okay, squad 2, security to the west. You guys are doing a great job. Looks like we're holding it as it is.
Okay.
I got southwest, basically. I got a nice little corridor here.
I see you back there. Watch your back.
14 mags.
Hey, look, no scope finally.
Hey.
That was definitely a
Oh,
shot.
no. Dave, keep looking down the hill we were looking before. 3 of them.
Two down, two down.
Saw another one in that bush. I am empty completely.
Oh, that 203. Ow.
Spawns on the right, looks like.
I'm hit twice,
I've got
We got contacts close. I got a bandage.
Put a murdered man with the M9. I don't have any more ammo. Alright, I have nothing. Time for melee.
You need a pistol?
Time for
Yo,
violence.
Vapor, what's up? Where are the commies?
What's up, dude?
Nothing much just got back from me.
I've got a pistol if you could just give me ammo.
Alright, I'll
Honestly,
take
I'm
my
not sure, but I'm
one
guessing
mag.
This way.
I'll take 2 mags. You can take the other mag left.
Soon bearing 120 to 160
sir.
firm. Moving up. Hit.
One down there. His teammates are crossing with their
There's gonna be a
muzzles.
medic here.
Medical seems kind of basic right now. Like it's just not finished. But it's not overly complicated, which I appreciate right now.
Question, how do you switch fire mode?
We're gonna be heading south, so line up on my left and right facing south.
Those radios. I'm pretty immersed right now.